Hello, my horror-loving dudes! I'm Killjoy Jake, and today we got a big ol' nasty video on Final Destination 6. I have an exclusive update from Production Weekly given to me by my wonderful friend Kay over on Twitter. Make sure to follow her, by the way. Her little title and link and @ whatever the Twitter people call it, it'll be right down here below at the bottom of the screen. Alrighty then, let's get into it.
Well, sometimes that is better.
In order to discuss the upcoming franchise continuation, we must first go back to 2011 when Final Destination 5 came out. This does mean we have to spoil some of the other entries in this franchise, so if you have not seen Final Destination 1 through 5, you may want to skip this video and then come on back when you've seen them, because then we can talk about the next one. Spoilers ahead for past movies, you have been warned. Final Destination 5 came out swinging with some of the most favorable reviews of any of these movies to date. It currently holds the highest Rotten Tomatoes score of all 5 of the movies. The critical consensus reads, it's still only for the gore-thirsty faithful, but Final Destination 5 represents a surprising return to form for the franchise. Personally, I love the latest entry in the Final Destination franchise because I feel like it kind of goes back to the original. It has the feeling of like the second film, which is probably my favorite besides 5, and then it also has one of the most tragic twist endings I've ever seen to a movie to date. Is it bad that I'm smiling and trying not to laugh right now? Well, let's pretend like I'm not a psycho and keep moving on with this video. Another surprising element to FD5 is that it has the lowest domestic box office of the entire franchise, only raking in a little over 42 million. Tony Todd, who had returned to the franchise in this entry, said in a 2011 interview with Dread Central that if this movie is a success at the box office, they would make 2 sequels back to back. That comment just makes my heart kinda sad. Could you imagine if we already had Final Destination 6s and 7s? That would have been awesome. But the thing about that quote that's so odd to me is that although it had the lowest domestic box office, it had one of the biggest worldwide box office of the entire franchise. Worldwide, Final Destination 5 made 157 million, making it the second highest grossing film in the entire franchise. Now, a big reason why I think folks didn't show up for Final Destination 5 is because they were just coming off of The Final Destination, which is, in my opinion, maybe the worst film in that franchise. The 4th movie in the franchise, titled The Final Destination, just like how The Ohio State University trademarked the word "the" to be ahead of that. Look it up, it's true. It wasn't exactly the best movie in that franchise. Most cited as their least favorite, it has some whack CGI going on in it, and maybe some of the worst characters to date. That's just my opinion though. If you love the film, all the power to you. I don't think it's that bad. Like some people want to say it's one of the worst movies they've ever seen. Honestly, I don't think there is a bad Final Destination film. They're all very fun and ridiculous. But I think the big reason Final Destination 6 didn't come out was also just because the studio didn't want to make another movie for $40 million that would have brought in less money. Director Stephen Quayle said at the time, "Who knows? Never say never." I mean, it'll be up to the fans. We'll see how this one performs internationally, and if it makes as much money as the 4th one, I'm sure Warner Brothers will want to make another one. Well, that just didn't happen, unfortunately. It made about $30 million less than the previous entry, and yeah, just unfortunately didn't make that cut. And like I was saying earlier, The Final Destination and Final Destination 5 both had a $40 million budget. One of those pulled in way more money, though. With Final Destination 5 kind of being on a decline, Warner Bros. Was kind of like, nope, let's stop that train early before we start to lose money. This is unfortunately something we see happen many times with horror franchises. Sometimes it's because audiences are just getting sick of like constant movie after movie after movie of the same franchise. You just need to take a break for a little while, and then you bring it back and people are all excited again. That's what a lot of people are saying about the Scream franchise right now, but old Jake still kind of wants one more. I just haven't had enough Ghostface in my life, I don't think. But unfortunately for Final Destination fans in the early 2010s, the wait would be way longer than you would think because we didn't get an update on the 6th entry until 2019. In January of 2019, a 6th installment was officially announced by Warner Bros. And New Line. Patrick Melton and Marcus Dunstan from Saw and The Collector fame were initially attached to pen a screenplay. Their script was described as a reimagining of the same premise from those original 5 movies. Devon Sawa even expressed interest later that year for being in the film again, reprising his role somehow. Who knows if that's going anywhere, but I would love to see more Devon Sawa in any horror movie, personally. Love that he's on the Chucky show, though. That's pretty cool. Moving into March of 2020, a month none of us want to remember, series producer Craig Perry stated some interesting things about this version of Final Destination 6. Perry stated, "We're toying with having it take place in the world of first responders, EMTs, firemen, and police. These people deal with death on the front lines every day and make choices that can cause people to live or die. We rely on their good judgment, expertise, and calm demeanor. So why not put those people in the nightmare situation where every choice can bring about life and death, but now for themselves? We're thinking the world might be an interesting way into a Final Destination movie, and one which can also generate unique set pieces in a very credible way. Now, I remember hearing that all the way back in 2020. Heck, I might have even done a video on it. I can't remember that far back in the past. I remember hearing that though and thinking that was a really cool idea for a Final Destination movie. I mean, think about it. If you have a movie about like EMTs, firemen, police, there's so many different things you can do for an opening sequence. Like, the possibilities are endless. It's not so cut and dry like, oh, this is what the big opening sequence explosions and deaths are going to be. No. It's a little more mysterious than that. I was actually pretty down with that idea, but it doesn't seem like Final Destination 6 is going to be about this anymore, and we will get to that in a second. Just hang on. Just keep watching the video. We're getting there. It was in 2021, though, that we got kind of a weird update with Final Destination 6. Laurie Evans Taylor, the director of Bed Rest with Melissa Barrera, had been announced to have replaced Marcus Dunstan and Patrick Melton as the writer of Final Destination 6. Since then, Guy Busick and Jeffrey Reddick, the series creator, have since gained writer credits to this film, which is very odd. Like, what happened with Marcus Dunstan and Patrick Melton? Probably creative differences would be my guess. While I enjoyed Bed Rest and all three of the Radio Silence films that Guy Busick has written for, I really think that Patrick Melton and Marcus Dunstan would have been good choices for a Final Destination film. Don't forget, these guys wrote for some of the more underrated Saw movies, so it would have been kind of cool to see what they would have done with a Final Destination flick. The first Final Destination kind of came out in this weird period of time with horror movies. The like Scream copycat films, which I hate calling them that, they just kind of share a same vibe to Scream. Those were kind of starting to go on the down a little bit, and it was really cool. A lot of them are very good. The urban legend movies are super underrated if you've never seen them. But while Final Destination does kind of fit in that category, it also does showcase some crazy gory kills, especially in some of the later sequels. You have the relatable Kevin Williamson-esque characters getting killed in these showcase big deaths like that, kind of like in a Saw movie. So it's a marriage of these two subgenres coming together, which is what makes Final Destination as a franchise so special in my opinion. Now, I really do love all the groups of different people that got to work on this project at one point or another, but what I will say about Marcus Dunstan and Patrick Melton is that, my god, they need a break. Working on the third Collector film, Patrick and Marcus got ghosted by the producers and production seized. It really sucks as a big fan of that franchise for them to just kind of give up on it halfway through the shoots. Like, that is unheard of. That just absolutely sucks, and I feel so bad for them. Tom Atkins was going to be in that movie. Tom the Mustache Atkins was going to be in the third Collector film. That would have been awesome. So while I do want those guys to get a break, I am still very excited to see what Guy, Laurie, and Jeffrey cook up in the writer's room. I'm sure it's still going to be great. I really love what Guy Busick brought to the table in the Scream movies. I think Bed Rest was actually pretty underrated with Melissa Barrera. That was a fun movie. And Jeffrey Reddick is the franchise creator. You gotta have him on board. He knows what he's doing. He is Final Destination. That was a little dramatic, but I think it was earned. In January of 2022, it was announced that John Watts, the director of Spider-Man No Way Home, would serve as a producer on this film. Now that I do remember making a video on because that was only like a year-ish ago. And simultaneously, it was announced that the film would be distributed by HBO Max. I kind of hope that doesn't happen, because let's look at Evil Dead Rise for a minute that just passed $100 million at the box office. That was supposed to go to HBO Max, and that $100 million we were just talking about wouldn't exist. So I kind of hope that Final Destination 6 goes to theaters, man. People are excited about horror movies again, man. Throw it out there, see what happens. But it was later on in 2022 that we got the craziest update regarding Final Destination 6, and our directors were finally found. According to THR, Emmy-nominated directors Zach Lipovsky and Adam B. Stein sat down for a Zoom call with New Line Cinema executives to make their pitch. As the meeting was coming to a close, the mantle of the fireplace behind them went up in flames. After extinguishing the fire, both filmmakers took their seats to finish up the call when they were once again interrupted by a mysterious creaking noise above them. In a heart-stopping instant, the ceiling fan overhead came crashing down, decapitating one of the directors. So just to make this very clear, that was a bit. They are both still alive. This was done using some pre-recorded footage and, of course, some VFX. It was all fake. They just made it up and basically solidified themselves as the next directors in the Final Destination franchise. Not only is that the best job interview story of all time, but it also has me super hyped to see what these guys have cooking up with Final Destination 6. I mean, yeah, the job is theirs, dude. Like, they have this movie. That is way too good of a pitch. I don't even care what they were talking about, just that alone. That's all I need to know. That's it. That's okay. You guys got the job. Let's move on. Amazing story. But now let's get into the very few plot details we actually kind of know about this movie. The plot description for the movie currently reads, a young woman named Stephanie has a reoccurring dream about dying in a fire that occurred in the 1960s. 1960s. She realizes that it's not just a dream, but a premonition of the fates that awaits her family. Her grandmother had escaped the same fate years ago. Now, death is coming after Stephanie's entire family, and she must find a way to stop it before it's too late. Before we start talking more about the plot, I just want to say at this point, moving on, this is just my own speculation. I don't know any more about this movie than basically what I've given you in this video. This is everything we know, baby. From that plot description, I can see how they maybe reworked some of like the first responders things, and maybe they like simplified it down into just firefighters, and they're making a focus on that, which actually would be pretty cool. I'd be down for a story about some firefighters, but none of that is confirmed, of course. This plot description is very vague. I'm not really pulling a whole lot from that, except that we're probably going to get to see that dream at the very beginning of the movie, just like how most of the premonitions work in these films. It'll probably be a bunch of people burning down in a building or something, and the grandmother survived, and now death is coming after them. Pretty simple approach to a Final Destination film, but I'm not looking for something overly complicated. I'm not looking to reinvent the wheel with Final Destination 6. I kind of just want more of the same. This is already a pretty convoluted, crazy idea, so let's just roll with it. One thing I believe we can all agree on with Final Destination, though, is that I hope to see Tony Todd back in this upcoming sequel. Speaking of that, though, no cast has been confirmed, we don't have a release date, and we know that the movie's going to be filming in mid-July in Vancouver. So we probably won't get any, like, big news about it until later on in this summer. Stay tuned, my friends. That's pretty much everything I could find on Final Destination 6, and I am super hyped for this film. What do you think about it, though? Leave me something about it in the comments below. Thank you all so much for watching this big ol' nasty video on Final Destination 6. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more horror content in the future. Please consider supporting me on Patreon if you want to see this channel grow, and as always, don't forget to kill it out there, y'all.